because I have found the difference between sandy and sandy.
Your name is Gabriel.
To be sure, Goldie, I see Joe still likes his camera audience. Not that Cheyenne Forest here.
Now we'll proceed single file up here, and you can see a couple things. Maybe you can't see anything because the sun's glare. But this rock alignment is pointed right towards that sunset.
Huh?
It's neat.
Yes, it is.
Come into the wheel, and I'm going to walk around so that we form a circle. I want to form a really tight circle because the closer we're into the center, the less bugs there'll be. We'll have to be out a little further than that. To get in. Over here.
Come on there, Marshall.
No, you have to join the circle. You have to join this circle. We're going to have you dance. I want first is raise your hand if you've had a romantic experience up here at Medicine Wheel Park. We were up here before this even existed. It used to be called Bear Hill. And it's changed completely. But it still maintains the secondary title as Love Park.
Just because we got engaged.
Well, first, although this is pointed directly at the sunset, you will note, please, that it's very glary there. I can't tell where the sun is setting. So every culture that built one of these kind of solar calendars did so by observing sunrise. So I'll meet you up here at winter solstice sunrise, which is the best because it's pointed right there, and you'll see exactly what I mean by that.
I've been here. When it's -20. Yeah, and snow.
That's a great time to be up there.
I know.
Fewer mosquitoes.
You can see that the circle is a very sacred shape, almost every culture. We saw circles everywhere. The sun's a circle, the moon's a circle, things seem to circle us. So it is a very sacred thing, the circle is, and the medicine wheel is a circle. In fact, it represents the Earth's orbit in the layout of the planetary system. And I just got back from traveling in Nepal for a month and a half, luckily 25 days before the earthquake. And although I visited other southeastern countries that have this sign, I was particularly attracted to that in Nepal, where they put their hands out in front of them like this, a tiny bow, everybody, and they say namaste.
Namaste.
Let's do that again. Namaste. Now do a namaste to the person on your right and left. Namaste. As it was explained to me, this is another circle. And this circle goes through your heart. And then by acknowledging the other person, you are connecting your two hearts. And I don't know, a couple decades ago, the Center for Disease Control did this kind of handshake, where you were to stay safe from germs, you were just to do this. But I say, let's do namaste one more time.
Namaste. What's it mean, Joey?
I acknowledge the divine in you.
Oh, is
Yes.
that what it is? Okay.
The divine in me acknowledges the divine in you.
And,
I've got it on my office door.
Okay.
and certainly, our world needs a little more of that. You know, we can build that by our community. We don't need the higher authority to understand that that's important to our lives. I'd like to introduce now to you Chris Redfern. Is Chris here?
I'm right here.
Please take your place on the sun.
Burn me alive, I see.
I've asked Chris to come up here. He is the chair of the music department, and we're glad to have him here, and so I can have my retirement partner. And what we're going to do first is we're going to sing the first verse of Taps twice, just so we get it right, and then we're going to hear it played on the trumpet as the sun is setting. The wonderful curator of the Barnes County Historical Museum said to me he didn't know there were lyrics to Taps.
Really?
And there are, and they are very suitable for the occasion. So we're going to do this. Chris will sing it line by line, and then we will repeat after him.
Welcome, everyone. So I'm just going to play my first note here. So it's going to go like this. Day is done. Gone the sun. From the lakes, from the hills, from the sky.
From the lakes, from the hills, from the sky.
All is well, safely rest.
All is well, safely rest.
God is nigh.
God is nigh.
So we put that all together. Ready?
Day is done.
From the sun, from the lakes, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh.
Now for the playing of Taps, I want us to do one more feature to impress the circle. I want us to cross arms and grab the hand of the person inside. We'll have to come in maybe a little closer.
You're recording it.
Now we're connected.
Completely, yes.
So here's the summer solstice sunset.
That's a pretty good lineup, Dakota.
I'll remind you that this is the smoke that for the summer sunset, This is the one for the winter solstice. So that sun swings like a pendulum, 72 degrees. And of course in the center are spring and fall.
So you need a chainsaw to see that one.
I'll acknowledge, well here, let's acknowledge another stellar object. Let's do this, repeat after me as we look at the waxing crescent moon. Hail, hail!
Hail, hail!
Young moon!
Young moon!
Hail, hail!
Hail, hail!
Young moon!
Young moon!
Hail, hail!
Hail, hail!
Young moon!
Young moon!
It's an acknowledgement that, of course, in this sculpture here, there are 28 spokes, and that represents the lunar cycle. Although there are 29 days, zero was a harder concept. And I want to say that, of course, that almost all calendars started by the moon. People noticed the tiny crescent moon, and then it was full and around. So almost everyone built their calendar on the moon, only to find out that there's not an even number of lunar cycles in a year, so it didn't do them any good keeping track of the most important thing, and that is the cycle of the seasons. So they switched. One of the best examples of how we're still tied into the lunar calendar is, of course, Easter, because Easter sometimes it's March, sometimes it's April. Can't they get it right? And the deal is, of course, it is the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the first day of spring. So there are quite a few events that are still lunar solar events. Yeah, and fishing. Fishing is too, right? There's a fisherman out here. So
That's why Ramadan right now is in the summer. Very long day.
well, look at that. Look at this sunset.
Joe, impending doom on the horizon.
Yes, there's a pending doom.
Tomato in the area at 6:15 while we were just there. Yeah, I had a warning. I had a warning up, and it was like this stuff and stuff like that. I'm like, can we not go up there? Like, right around this time? That was the big cloud that we saw above the sun.
Now what I'd like to do is to walk to Saturn, and I'll introduce you to Chuck Bowen. We have created rings of Saturn. They are spectacular, and I want you to come down and see us. So we'll go out this way along the walk of the planets: Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, the orbit. I need to remind you, I need to caution you that the scale of this solar system is reduced 15 billion times. So 1 foot equals 3 million miles. So at a slow walking pace, we'll be traveling 37 times the speed of light. Watch your step.
That means that I would be gone in this micro valley before I even leave the sun. Hey, and I was walking earlier today, and I called. So what's doing? Yes, tornado warning until 6 in the area. Yeah, off of the side of.
Of course, it's Jupiter. Jupiter was the biggest rock that the city's payloader could lift. So this is all the bigger I could get it.
Rachel went. She got back, and what does she do? She goes to the tennis courts and serves 2.5 carts of balls after she just got camped for 3 days.
This is the second type of calendar humans built. These are the two main structures of calendar. One depends on where the sun sets on the horizon. This one depends on where this utility pole cast its shadow at local apparent noon. Not necessarily, not this noon, because today at 1:32, because there's the zone time, and then there's the equation of time, and then there's the daylight savings time. So at 1:32, the shadow of the top of this utility pole across, someone seems to have noted it too by putting the rock up here, fell right here. And then on the first day of winter, it stretches out to 100 feet down there. So this is a much more dynamic. You can see the shadow going across, and then going like this as the day progresses. Well, have you rested enough so we can make the rest of the trip to Saturn?
Yeah, I've been playing from I started playing I'm a singer by trade, I'm a choir director, but I still pull this out occasionally. It's funny when you mention the Girl Scouts, because usually when I think about it,
So now I'd like to introduce you to an astronomy student that I had 25 years ago, and that we've recently reconnected. He has built this very nice sculpture of Saturn, and his whole family and extended family were involved, and I'll have him introduce those people that helped with this. But you can see it's really nice. Here's the Cassini division, 3 of the major rings, and quite to scale. And it really adds a nice element to the walk of the planets. Chuck Bowen.
It's going to be a short talk, so you can applaud again now.
Well, if you hear applause now, it's us
That means I'm
slapping mosquitoes.
Well, yeah, this is my wife Sherry. She helped with, well, just about everything.
I'm gonna hide over here.
Anna.
In it, my daughter Jamie,
Raise your hand.
and Brad Cumlin, Jamie's boyfriend. It was kind of funny when we were putting this thing in here. We had all this equipment, you know, this cement mixer and everything, and we rented the cement mixer. We got about 8 pours into putting this thing up. We've got rain coming. The cement mixer packed up on it. So Brad mixed, I don't know, had to be 25 bags of cement by hand, probably faster than the machine to get this thing poured. And my oldest boy Jason was also helping us out with it. The only one that didn't help was my youngest son Joel, because he was working that day.
So did you have to hold it at an angle till it set, or?
Well, yeah, kind of. We just propped a 2x4 up behind it, kind of at the right angle. Something that looks good. I don't know what time of year this, or when it would be sitting like this, but well, I don't know.
How'd you go about making it? Like, did you just find different pieces and cut it, or what'd you do to do it?
Well, the rings, I was actually going to have a company over in Jamestown bend the rings, but they had equipment coming and it didn't show up, so I wound up, we bent the rings by hand on a Hausfeld bender that I've got at the shop. And then we had to get, you know, the dark ring, the lighter ring, and a lighter ring. We just looked around until we found something that looked like it was suitable to make the differentiations. And there were other guys that helped too. Guys, you know, friends of mine that in the shop. Dave Johnson, he helped bend with the bending of the rings. Josh Josh Dittmer. He was also out here helping. If you're a Harry Potter fan and you see a guy walking around town that looks like Hagrid, that would be Josh Dittmer. He's about 6'5" and about 325 pounds. He's a teddy bear. But yeah, Saturn. I remember the first time I saw Saturn through a scope. I was before I met Joe. Before I'd been to college, Cherry had bought me a little $60 Tasco scope, and the first time I saw Saturn, it just took my breath away. And that's one of the high points of my life was getting to show Saturn to my first and best science teacher. Sorry, Joe, but it was my mom. And to watch her the first time she saw Saturn through a scope was really fun. And I don't know, nobody has any other questions.
So had you been dreaming this for a while, or how did you come up with the
idea?
Well,
actually, Joe came to me, and this is kind of what started it. It was purely by accident that I wound up doing this, but I was one of the students, so it worked out really well.
I don't think it was an accident.
No, probably not. They say there are no accidents.
Well, thank you for making it.
Yes.
Namaste.
Thank you. I guess that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Let's go up to the parking lot a minute, and I'll have a few other announcements, but anytime we can get away from the grass, it works better. So,
Joe, real quick, what do the rings represent though? Are they ice, gas, what?
The rings are particles, you know, house size and smaller. And this really is a nice, I like this metal because sometimes parts of those rocks levitate up and shadow the rest of the rings. So that's what Voyager saw when they went by. And when Voyager went by, you could see the shadows of the rings on the planets too. So this is...
I'm going to have to find something to put on there.
This one, you know, I imagined the rings of Saturn ever since we put the rock there to represent Saturn, but I didn't imagine anything this nice. Thank you, Bowen and company.
You got a name, right?
You got it? Sure, you got a name.
I think it's
Now we're going to go.
See, they got the phone walking today.
They said they're going to.
I didn't see it in the waterfall. When I was there. Good deal.
Otherwise, it's a mosquito eater.
Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it.
They're walking down. I thought, I hope I don't go head over the hill.
Yeah, she's got very good imagination. And you know, maybe no, I know. There are times that we wonder. Yeah, so she said, and I said, well, I'll see you tonight. Oh, it's fantastic. She has the best stories. Yeah, I hope nobody's what you do online.
What that guy's doing now.
Oh, yeah,
Maybe make one of those nice circles again. I'll be the center.
You hear that, Kate?
Yes.
If you were one of my students or not, that you came up here and you worked at the wheel, take a couple steps inside the circle so we can acknowledge your labor. Students of our community. I see two of my students, Matt and Garth.
Yeah, he didn't call me.
Matt Nielsen and Garth Weber belong to the Century Club. They've spent over 100 hours of labor up here. And I wouldn't give either one of them an A.
That's different. That's almost a factor.
And then Matt's your chemistry teacher at Valley City High School. And where's your students tonight? And the astronomy teacher. He teaches an astronomy class at the high school. But there's lots of community members, the Petersons family, the Nielsen family, Jan and your family, all have contributed so much that I love to repeat this quote that appeared in the Times Record one time. It said, Medicine Wheel Park, the intersection of community and university. And certainly Valley City State University and the community have some of the best relations that I've known between town and gown at the various colleges I've taught at. The next part of our program and will be the telescopes are lined up, will be lined up back here. As it gets dark, we'll try to see if we can spot Saturn over here. The moon we can put the telescopes on the moon right now. And how many see Venus? Yeah, Venus is already visible. Who sees Jupiter?
See the moon and Venus and the perfect triangle above it. So then Jupiter is the tip of the triangle above.
Yeah, I see it.
Above Jupiter and the moon.
It's if you draw a
The
straight
right one
line,
is Venus.
halfway in this way.
And
Draw a straight line between them. In the midpoint, go straight up.
And my friends and colleagues, Preston Bush, the chair of the math department, Matt Nielsen, high school chemistry and astronomy teacher, and Wes Anderson, Barnes County curator, and Chuck Bowen are going to lead the observing session. We've got all types of telescopes up here for the night. And here to me is the significant. On Jupiter, we'll put the telescope on Jupiter and we'll see the moons of Jupiter. We will put the telescope on Venus and you will see that Venus is in a crescent shape. And then we'll put the telescope on Saturn and we'll see the rings. All three of those observations were made around 400 years ago by Galileo with one of the first telescopes that we ever had. Two of those observations helped validate the idea that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, but the Earth revolved around the sun.
Well, that's heresy.
That is heresy.
Yeah.
So that was heresy, and for that heresy, Galileo was saved from torture, but he was put in, he was confined to his apartment for the rest of his life. But in 1992, after lots of legal,
well, in 2015, the current Pope, who has a master's degree in chemistry, has just issued an encyclical dealing with climate change and income inequality. And
well, and the 1992 event was good too.
Yeah.
Because in 1992, after much study, they did forgive Galileo for his heresy.
Man, will he be released in his grave.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
I'm not done with my heresies, though. I'm still alive and kicking. And I would say, as they set up the telescopes, you might tour this 4,000 square foot perennial garden. The telescopes will be shooting the moon pretty soon. Well, I didn't say that exactly right. And
For that, we should torture him.
greet people that you don't know.
Who are you again?
Joe Stickler.